Hello, all of you online and in person. Thanks for coming to our first ever Community Solar Redesign Stakeholder Meeting #1. We're going to kick us off here. We do have this room for a little extra time. We've only scheduled an hour for the meeting, but if there's excess questions, we have time to field those. We're going to start off with a safety moment here. Heat dangers, since it's summertime and the summertime is finally heating up after a mild June. Heat disorders generally have to do with the reduction or collapse of the body's ability to shed heat by circulatory mechanisms and sweating. If you suspect that someone is suffering related illness, get the person out of the heat into an air-conditioned space. Call 911 if you suspect heat stroke. Apply cold, wet cloth to wrists, neck, armpits. These are places where the blood passes close to the surface of the skin. Cold cloth can help cool the blood. If a person can swallow safely, offer them fluids such as water and sports drinks, no caffeine or alcohol. If a person can safely do so, encourage them to shower, bathe, or sponge off with cool water. To help prevent heat exhaustion in the first place, schedule outdoor activities during cooler periods, wear loose clothing, pace yourself and take breaks, stay hydrated, check in on others, make sure they do the same for you, and never leave children or pets in cars without proper cooling. And with that, I will turn it over to our solar director, Tim Harvey.
Hello, y'all. Thanks for coming. As always, we really appreciate feedback from our stakeholders. We don't like to do things in a vacuum. We'll have some time at the end for y'all to express your views and give us some feedback. And so as I move through the agenda today, going to be looking at the current offering for the community solar program. Going to kind of discuss, how that came to be, how we are where we're at, and why we need to have a program redesign. And then we'll get into some of the basics of that. And then we'll open it up for feedback. So community solar is a little bit complicated, so bear with me here. I'm going to try to pause every once in a while and see if y'all have questions to make sure that you don't need to catch up a little bit. It is a little bit complicated, so here we go. So when we were designing the community solar program, we looked at these different models that were kind of being utilized in different capacities throughout the nation. And so we wanted to make sure that we were choosing the right model that fit our plan and what our customers wanted. We had several stakeholder meetings about this. And so I'll just kind of go over the different models real quick. So one potential model is an upfront or monthly capacity-based subscription. So the customer pays an upfront payment based on the kilowatts that they're subscribing to, and then they receive the solar credits from the production of those kilowatts on their bill. So you have a variable amount of production annually, as you produce more solar energy in the summertime than you do in the wintertime, et cetera. That model has the customers basically potentially, oh no, that's the ownership model. So anyway, so that is a little bit complicated for customers. It doesn't always necessarily meet their monthly consumption demands. And so we felt like that was going to be pretty hard to explain to customers moving forward. The next one, the power supply adjustment plus a premium. So the community solar customers would subscribe to 100% of their energy use at a premium. That's always floating on top of the power supply adjustment. So every month they pay a premium no matter what. So that's one model. It's very simple. It's very easy to understand. That's kind of the benefits of that. A PSA lock So this is the idea that you replace the power supply adjustment with a community solar adjustment that's locked in. So the power supply adjustment is going to go up and down over time based on Austin Energy's costs. What this would do is take that fee off of the bill, off the customer's bill, and replace it with a locked-in community solar adjustment. Panel ownership. So the ownership model is pretty complex. Basically, customers would purchase the solar panels that are located at the solar farm, and then we're allocating the production from those particular panels to the customers. Customers would apply for the tax credits for those, and eventually could potentially sell them to other customers or third parties. Needs to say that's a model that we did not pursue. And then a low income program where Austin Energy would offer community solar to customer assistance program customers at a subsidized rate. So ultimately, after many stakeholder meetings and analysis of all of these options, we basically went with these two options. So currently, community solar customers have a CSA locked-in price. So the community solar adjustment replaces the power supply adjustment on a customer's bill, and it's locked in for a period of 15 years. So, and then we also have a low-income program where we apply a subsidy to the low-income participation so that they're guaranteed to have no cost. And for the most part, they get bill savings through that approach. So let me speak to this a little bit more. So, one of the reasons that we chose the locked-in price was because our portfolio was locked in. So it wasn't variable, or isn't, I should say, variable. It's either owned by the city or we have a power purchase agreement that's set for a period of years. So these projects all had fixed costs, very predictable pricing moving forward. And so that would allow us, based on the portfolio, to come up with a price that we can lock in for customers. Now that price at the beginning comes at a premium. So market rate customers would pay at the beginning of this offering $0.015 more than all other customers for their consumption. But because that community solar adjustment is locked in, it allows customers to hedge when the power supply adjustment fee goes up. And I'll show you more about that in a future slide. But the premise of the initial offering is that we have this fixed cost portfolio. We can fix costs for customers. The market price is going to fluctuate and eventually go up, most likely. And so over time, as the value of that energy that's being produced increases, the utility becomes whole for taking on this kind of higher priced option. And then eventually we'll hedge, and likewise for customers. So the community solar adjustment, while it's a premium at first, could potentially be less than the PSA as we move forward and they begin to hedge. So having that fixed cost option is important to that model. So the current community solar program expands offerings to customers who are unable to put solar on their roof. That's one of the main objectives of a community solar program, is to broaden the reach of solar, broaden customers' ability to participate in solar. So now that includes like renters, condo owners, the transient renter population. You don't have to own a roof at all. You just have to have a residential customer account with Austin Energy. So you know, that also, even if you owned a roof, if it was shaded, that wouldn't be good for solar. You know, there are people that have great roofs for solar, but just don't have the upfront cash to invest. And so this is options for them too. It also increases access to low to moderate income. And by providing that incentive that basically covers the premium price of the subscription program, low to moderate income customers can participate at no cost upfront with no maintenance or roof impacts and with no long-term commitment. So currently, we've divided the program 50-50. So 50% of the production goes to market rate customers, 50% of the production goes to low income customers. So this also supports Austin Energy's resource generation and climate protection plan. It seeks to reduce costs through economies of scale. So this is big with solar, and this is one of the reasons why community solar works, because we can do larger projects through the city. We can garner those economies of scale, which are real. You know, like a large commercial project might come in at around half the cost or 2/3 of the cost of a residential project. So you get some real economies there. Increasing the generation within our load zone helps Austin Energy. So it reduces our transmission congestion, and it basically helps us to stay right in the market, because if we have too much load and not enough generation in our load zone, then our market price spikes up more. And so the wider that gap gets, the more our market price separates from the rest of Texas. And right now, as we've retired about 700 megawatts of generation out of our gas-fired power plants at Decker, since retiring that 700 megawatts, we've seen that price separation happen. So it's supply and demand. We've reduced our supply, so the price goes up. That's just how it works. And so this helps us to increase our supply. It increases resiliency. So having generation assets in our load zone helps us with resiliency. It helps to reduce that congestion and some of the issues that take place there. Utilizes the local workforce. So that's a big one, right? This is local economic development. So every dollar that the city of Austin spends in town on work being done in town goes to the local economy and gets recycled through the local economy. And that's valuable to the city of Austin. It opens opportunities for customer engagement and education. So, one of the things that it has been a real asset here is the La Loma Solar Farm is local. It's right here in town. It's big enough to be impressive. So we have tours out there, and we do solar education on those tours quite frequently. So we're meeting with elementary school kids, up through university students, delegates from other countries. The scope is pretty broad for the amount of people that we can reach through these solar farms. And it provides cross-promotional opportunities for other Austin Energy programs. So it's a touch point, right? Subscribers in the community solar program are customers that are very engaged. And through that engagement, we can cross-promote our other energy efficiency programs and demand response programs. So there's lots of benefits to community solar. So as far as subscribing to community solar, it's real easy. We just have a form on our web page. Customers can go and fill out that form and get on the waiting list. Right now, we have about 420-ish subscribers with a 50-50 split. And then in terms of the wait list, we have about 223 market rate customers on the wait list and 13 cap customers. So as the subscribers to the program drop off for various reasons, they move out of town, they decide they don't want to do it anymore. Or if they're cap customers, maybe they become ineligible for cap because they start making more money or whatever. We go back and fill in any gaps that we have in our subscription. We keep this program fully enrolled pretty much at all times. And so that helps with the program economics. But, you know, our customers, as you can see, we have, you know, quite a big waiting list here, and the demand for more community solar is there. But what's happened is the projects stopped coming. So we tried to increase the portfolio of the current program on multiple occasions. However, what we ran into was that the proposals that we were getting were either too expensive, so they would have increased the premiums for everyone in the program, or they were proposing to do them at sites that weren't viable or where they did not have site control. And so those are risks as you're looking at different, you know, options for procuring generation, and none of the risks really outweigh the benefits in our last few attempts.
Can I
So,
ask you a question?
yes, sir. Or yes, ma'am.
Could you like elaborate more on like what was not viable for the site selection and what much risk?
Yeah, so like one example was that they were proposing to put a 5 megawatt solar array in the preserve. Right, that's totally not viable. Or they didn't have the proper site control, so they were saying, oh yeah, well, we could theoretically do them at these sites, but you know, they hadn't had any kind of agreement or arrangement with
Gotcha.
customers, et cetera.
Okay.
Things like that, like the uncertainty equals risk.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's how that happened. So that said, that's kind of why we came up with the standard offer program, and I probably will go into that in another slide. So the standard offer program is meant to be a path. You know, one of its purposes is to be a path for us to increase the community solar portfolio.
Question in the chat. Can you expand on what you mean by no long-term commitment, considering the solar installed at any location, its ROI only makes sense for the owner if it first stays? I think this is referring.
Okay, yeah. So when I say that, I was specifically speaking to subscriptions. So a customer can subscribe to the program and they can stop subscribing to the program at any time without penalty. So we're just not requiring a commitment from participating customers. That said, you know, our projects, they're typically 20-year power purchase agreements. So we have a commitment to purchase that energy. So hopefully that clarified. All right, and so then also, you know, once they enroll, if they get or if they are able to subscribe, then we give them communication letters, et cetera, through that. There's some administrative burden there. And, you know, we have to manage this, and that's an important part of this.
Got a couple more questions in the chat. Can we expand the program with new installs on brownfield sites now that those are becoming viable? And then also, what is in good standing?
I mean, we're always looking at opportunities for new community solar arrays. And so while we have the standard offer as a procurement method now, we're still looking at other opportunities for community solar farms, like at the landfill, for example. So the answer is yes, we continue to look at that. It's just not been identified at this point. And then what was the second question?
What is in good standing? Might have been the side or something like.
For subscription, an account, if they want to join, they have to be in good standing, not in arrears,
Okay.
not
Yeah.
on the utility level.
So if a customer hasn't been paying their bill, then they're not eligible for the program. Yeah, so here's an example of some electric bills. This first one on your left is just a normal bill, and you can see there that there's the power supply adjustment there. Now, when a customer decides to go solar, or sorry, go to community solar, that power supply adjustment fee on the bill goes away, and it gets replaced with the community solar adjustment. So you see the yellow highlighted area there in the middle one. So that would be like a market rate customer. And then they're locked in at that 4.27 cent value and the PSA goes away for them. So they're locked into that for 15 years. And I'll show you with a graph how that affects them. And then on the far right, you have a capped community solar customer. So they're getting the discount. So you can see there, rather than paying that, rather than paying the full 4.27 cents, which has a 1.5 cent premium built in from the get-go, from like 2018 when we started the program, they get that discounted. So their locked-in price is actually 3.77. And it also replaces the power supply adjustment on it. So any questions about the billing for the current program? Pretty clear. So in this slide, you can see with these neon-esque lights how the market's working. So the red line there is the locked-in 4.27 cents that the market rate customer gets. The yellow line is the locked-in 2.77 cents that the cap customer gets. So you can see that, and then the green line is the power supply adjustment. So you can see that starting in 2018, which is when this program started, I think, the yellow line is always below that. So the cap customer's always saving. And in the first part of the program, the market rate customer paid a premium until 2022. But in about August of 2022, the power supply adjustment went up dramatically after our base rate case and after we made some adjustments. And then we were able to adjust that power supply adjustment on a monthly basis, I believe, after that. So you can see for a period here of about 2 years almost, the market rate customers were hedging on that. So they probably didn't make back all of the money they've invested so far, but the game's not over. And as the power supply adjustment continues to fluctuate, their price is going to stay fixed for 15 years. So the idea, and this is a risk, it's somewhat of a gamble because nobody knows where the market's going to go and what those values are going to be. But, you know, these market rate customers have decided, A, they want to invest in renewable energy. Why? Because it's the right thing to do for the environment. And B, potentially they could hedge and get their money back and end up making money. So you can see in the scenario here where both of those things can happen. They're either paying a premium or they're getting a discount. And the idea is that potentially over the long run, they could even out or maybe even come out ahead. But regardless, regardless, they're doing good for the environment, and that means a lot. And then, you know, the cap customers are always going to be either on the winning end or the neutral end of this. So if by chance the PSA went under the cap CSA, then we would address that. So any questions about this kind of locked-in rate approach and the hedging offering and the current community solar offering as it stands? All right, so I'm going to move forward with a little bit more explanation. So currently our portfolio consists of 3 projects. So we have the Palmer Event Center. It is owned by the city, about 185 kilowatts. We've got La Loma, which is in town on the east side, next to a substation. That is a power purchase agreement, and that's for 2.6 megawatts. And then we have Austin Bergstrom International Airport, and that is 1.8 megawatts, and that is also a PPA. So those PPA prices, again, are locked in for the duration of the program. Now let's talk about the other side of the program. So what customers get for subscribing to community solar is they get renewable energy. And for us to track that, we do that through what's called RECs. RECs are renewable energy credits. So energy doesn't know if, like, there's no flavor of energy that shows how you can tell green energy from brown energy, right? So we track it with RECs. If a renewable energy, or if energy is generated from a renewable energy source, then we assign a renewable energy credit to each kilowatt hour. And we can strip that credit from the source kilowatt hour, the actual kilowatt, the actual energy, and assign it to the consumption of a customer. So we do that for this program. That's how it works. And we have to balance that. So we can't assign more renewable generation to customers than we're producing. And we have to balance that on a quarterly basis. So you'll see here, our production exceeds consumption every quarter, no matter what. And so what that means is, like, the premise of the current community solar program is that those premiums help Austin Energy pay for the power purchase agreements that we've gotten into with this, and they subsidize it so that it becomes affordable for us and for our customers. And, we're not paying, that Austin Energy is not paying more than what our avoided costs are in the long run. And so you'll see here, like in Q2 of 2023, the consumption was half of the generation there. So really only half of that generation is getting subsidized through the program, right? So we have to consider that as we build new programs, how they work, and all the details of them. We want to protect our customers. If Austin Energy gets upside down too far on a deal like this, then our customers are upside down, and we don't want that. So we always try to make really good business decisions and don't get into projects that are just too high priced, or not going to behoove us in the long run. So I showed you how, let me just talk about this real quick. So we also have Green E. Green E is a energy certification company. They ensure that we're not double accounting our RECs. So, and that our claims to customers are accurate. There are a lot of programs out there that don't do that. I've talked to many utilities. Some of them have programs that I totally do not agree with because they are double counting They're counting their recs towards one thing and then they're applying them to another thing over here, and you can't have it both ways. So Greenie makes sure that we don't do that. And so that brings a higher quality product that our customers can trust to them. So they do monthly, quarterly, and annual assessments to make sure we're on track. So I told you about how for a customer, they're looking at what they would have paid for the PSA versus what they're paying with the CSA, the Community Solar Adjustment. And that's how they hedge is that comparison between the PSA and the CSA. But for the utility, it's different because we're buying that power. And the way we get a return on that investment is through the avoided costs of that power and then the premiums that come in through the program. So on one side of the scale, we have the community solar portfolio costs, right? Our power purchase agreements, buying the system. We have the programmatic costs. So what it costs us day to day to do advertising, to have customer service, billing, and all that stuff. So that's on one side. And then on the other side of the utilities value proposition is the avoided costs. So solar produced in our load zone is energy that we don't have to buy off the market. So the value of that, like right off the bat, is whatever the value of the market price is that we would have had to pay for a kilowatt hour at that time of day, on that day. So, for example, if it's a really hot summer day and there's a generation shortage or something, and the ERCOT market starts to go up to signal more generation to come online, well, the value of that solar energy that's being produced goes higher, and it tracks with the energy market, because otherwise we would have had to buy it off the market. So you can see how like Austin Energy's avoided costs change on a daily basis and even a seasonal basis, because our load is higher in the summer months. There's more demand. There's more price signaling for generation to come online. That creates value for generation that we're getting here. And then obviously, and so there's more to it than that. There's the energy, there's ancillary services, there's transmission benefits, like all those things happen from producing energy in the load zone. And then we also have the premiums that we're collecting that are coming in to add to that. So portfolio cost, program costs over here, benefits, avoided costs, and premiums over here. And as long as in the long run, those can balance out, then the utility is whole. And our customers can potentially benefit from that in the same way that, the participants in the program kind of hedge. So as market price continue to rise and we have this fixed portfolio cost, our customers become more and more protected from, the market price volatility. So I'm going to kind of pause there and make sure everybody understands the utilities value proposition. Good on that? So, and I'll just say, in order for us to have a successful program, all the scales have to balance, right? It has to be a good proposition for the customers. It has to be a good proposition for the utilities and for all parties involved, for the installers and all that. So it's a lot of balancing of scales there. We have a question online?
Yep, from James, where can we find details on how AE would cost of solar, specifically how AE values trade benefits from generation and reduction?
One place that it's published would be the base rate case of 2022. You can look that up. There's a detailed explanation of all the values that go into the value of solar. The value of solar rate is basically our avoided costs. So all of those three, energy, ancillary services, and transmission. And then it also has a societal benefit adder to it, which is not technically an avoided cost of the utility. It's an avoided cost of society to society. And so that would be a great place for you to look to get detailed explanations on how we go about calculating all those. But essentially what we're doing is we're lining up the production of solar within our load zone to the market on an hour by hour basis. And we do this in a backward looking approach. So every year we do a new assessment. And we're looking at known and measurable market prices and generation.
Dallas, we see more of that in Dallas, right? As opposed to farms and things like that. So a lot of our clients do have IoT.
Couple more in chat.
Yeah.
Are we looking at computer plus storage?
Not at the moment. Storage is not part of the community solar portfolio. That said, it potentially could be. And there could potentially be a load matching option. So right now, we have to true up on a quarterly basis, right? So once every 3 months. But with a time-based option, a load matching option, we would true up on an hourly basis. So that would mean we would have to have some kind of flexibility, i.e. batteries, with our generation to be able to fill in those gaps where we don't have renewables to assign to it. So this is something that we're working on. That's probably outside of the scope here for this conversation.
Is avoided cost accounting established the market, not taxed here on the ERCOT market?
Yes, it's based on the day ahead AE load zone price. Okay, so we've got a pretty good model. Why redesign it? Well, it goes back to that procurement issue. So we just had we're having problems trying to expand that portfolio and keep the prices down. So we sort of struck a new approach. We were relying on the market to give us the pricing, and it wasn't coming down to where we could be. So instead, we took a different approach where we give the price signal and the market tries to meet that. And so that's through the standard offer. Real quick, the standard offer is available currently. It's for commercial projects over 50 kW. It is tied to Austin Energy's avoided cost. So specifically the avoided costs of the last few years. I don't have that price right off the top of my head. I think it's 11.42 cents. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's somewhere around there. And basically that price will fluctuate. So that price is going to change once every 3 years. And when it does, it will be based on the previous 5 years of the average of the previous 5 years of analysis. So that takes the volatility out of that price because 1 year can be dramatically different than the next. For example, I think 2023 was a really high year. There was scarcity on the market. There's a lot of value to having generation in our load zone. And then in 2024, it was mild. There wasn't a lot of scarcity events. So that value in 2024 was about half of what it was in 2020. So that's a lot of volatility. We want to try to smooth that out for the industry. So that's why we take this, we change once every 3 years predictably, and then we look at the previous 5 years of analysis and average those to come up with the new value. So that's how that's working. And as such, rather than having that fixed price for our portfolio, as we move forward, the community solar is going to have a variable price that changes once every 3 years. Now, the good part about that is that it's always tied to Austin Energy's avoided cost. So we've mitigated the risk, right? We're never going to pay more than our cost neutral point. On the other side, we're never going to pay less than our cost neutral point. So that doesn't give us any ability to hedge. We're always floating right with it. So any premiums that we collect through the program are not going to pay for, you know, a portfolio that costs more than the energy's worth. But they're also, you know, not going to be added to that additional value if the portfolio costs less than the energy's. So I'm going to pause right there and just make sure everybody's on page. So essentially, we can't offer a hedging model because it's just not fair. So now we have to decide, okay, well, what's this look like moving forward? And that's where y'all come in, because we have some ideas. We definitely don't want to make decisions in a vacuum. We want to hear from y'all. We want to survey our customers. And we want to make sure that we're setting up this new program offering in a way that's going to, you know, keep the utility whole, make sure that we're not putting cost burden onto our customers, but also have an offering that's attractive to customers that want to participate, while doing the most good. And you know, for us in the Customer Renewable Solutions team, we're looking to expand renewables. Like if we can do that through a model that is good for customers and doesn't have like bad impacts to customers, we can keep expanding. That's what we want. It's all about environmental impacts, doing good in the community. So, okay.
Question in the chat, did you already survey customers about the rate they're?
No, that's going to be in this. We did long ago, with the first iteration of it, but we'll have to refresh that. And so that's going to be, you know, one of the main data points that we can get through a survey, I think. Really need to know that number. So just a little bit about the standard offer portfolio as it's starting to manifest. We have 10 encumbered projects for 5.25 megawatts. So those projects are substantially down the path. Some of them are on the verge of construction. And then we have another 15 in the pipeline. That represents another almost 10 megawatts. And then potentially the landfill, we continue to explore our options at the landfill. So there's quite a bit of potential capacity here that we're talking about, just so y'all know. And the standard offer program is enjoying some success. Okay. So we're looking for a new subscription model that's financially viable for Austin Energy and financially viable for program subscribers. And so we kind of talk about what that looks like for Austin Energy. For program subscribers, we do have a data point, and that's the Green Choice program. So the Green Choice program currently has roughly 20,000 customers in it at just about any point in time. So I think that that's a pretty substantial way to prove that customers are willing to pay about 3/4 of a penny premium for renewable energy. And it might be true that they're willing to pay more for local renewable energy because it just does more benefits to the local economy, and people can value that. So we'll see. But I would say as a baseline, we've kind of already established that customers are willing to pay 3/4. So the new program design also needs to be easy to understand, easy to administer. We need price certainty there. We can't have a bunch of risk and unknowns. And so those are the kind of things that we're looking for in a program. So what could that look like? Kind of looking at these different models that we've already explored. It's the floating premium model, which is that green one, is the one that we're kind of gravitating towards, just because that just floats along with our potentially fluctuating portfolio costs. And so we would always collect a premium over the power supply adjustment, very similar, and in fact, exactly the way that Green Choice. And as we're talking about a portfolio that doesn't offer any hedging, but then also has no risk of costing more than what it's worth, those premiums would be dollars that we could potentially, part of that would probably go towards the administrative and marketing costs of the program, but the remainder is money that we could potentially reinvest in some way. And so that's another point we wanted to talk to y'all about, get you thinking creatively about how we could reinvest customer premiums to enhance the program, expand the program, basically do more solar. So all of this is also in kind of a side-by-side conversation that we're having with residential standard offer. So residential standard offer is very similar to commercial standard offer, except for residential. Problem there is that residential customer size systems don't achieve those economies of scale. And so it's more of a challenge to make those pencil from a developer's standpoint. And so they're going to need basically some adders, some way to bring value and decrease costs of installation so that those numbers can pencil out and that program can start to potentially put in more solar. So lots of different things to consider there, like can we couple it with batteries? Can Austin Energy, invest in more marketing, or, can we utilize the premiums from this community solar program to provide some kind of a subsidy to the hosts or whatever, we don't know. So we want you guys to help with that input. So what we do now, we can't just get rid of the current model. We have a 15-year commitment with those customers. So it's got to live on till 2033. And so, what we will likely do is create or, put that program in a legacy program category where we kind of stop having new subscribers to the program. All the current subscribers get that same offering until 2033, and then we retire that program. So the new model, floating premium could be how it works. It could be reinvesting those. Another thing to consider is that we are creating a low-income only community solar program through Solar for All, which is a grant that we received from the federal government. Assuming that all comes to fruition, that's about $32 million that will help to subsidize all those projects and basically it will produce 20% bill savings for residential customers that are low-income residential customers that 15 years. So that's something to consider because we do want to have equity in our community solar programs. We want to make sure that they're not just, tailored for people who can afford to pay a premium, but can also bring the benefits to low-income customers as well. So we kind of see this as potentially having the Solar for All program for low income and having this for market rate. Not sure how that, if that's what we want to do, or some other version. So again, more input is welcome to that. And yeah, so I think it's just a detail that customers aren't going to be able to subscribe to Green Choice and community solar at the same time. Kind of, you got to pick one or the other. So that said, now we potentially have 3 community solar programs. So we need to think about not confusing customers over those programs and keeping things clear. Maybe having some different names for the programs to help with that and help differentiate the program offerings with customers in their minds, hearts, and pocketbooks. So, this is just another kind of illustration of how the utility looks at this new portfolio. Because now the community solar portfolio costs are always equal to the avoided costs for the utility with the new procurement of energy through standard offer. So we can kind of boil this down a little bit. Those cancel each other out. So now we're looking at customer premiums on one side, program costs and customer service costs, and then whatever else on the other side that balance out. So we're looking to develop a survey, like your input. We're looking for, different topics that could be explored with customers from y'all, maybe even specific questions. We can talk them out here. You can put them in the chat. You can send them to us at solar@austinenergy.com. And we're probably looking to put the survey out here in the next few weeks. And again, I think probably one of the primary factors that I'm most curious about is what premium are they willing to pay? And, more specifically, since we know they're willing to pay a premium for Green Choice, is like, would they be willing to pay a premium that's more than that for locally produced solar renewable energy that contributes to the local economy? So with that, questions or any ideas?
Couple in the chat. Is the potential in the Austin area, that is how much generation could we have if all viable sites were developed?
Well, that's a complicated question because there's more roof solar potential in Austin than the grid can handle. So your first constraint isn't roof space. It's really hosting capacity. And we're pretty low penetrated right now. We're somewhere around 4 or 5%. We do have feeders that are up to 20% penetration. At 20%, you start to look at it, because what happens if you go too high on your penetration is that it starts to have effects on different power quality issues, voltage and harmonics and thermal. Different challenges start to arise as you get to different levels of penetration. So, that's another totally different topic. Austin Energy's working on getting better visibility so that we can understand our hosting capacity better and expand that. There are different approaches you can do from an engineering perspective to put different types of equipment on the grid to increase hosting capacity. So again, I'm sorry I can't answer that question directly, but it's really complicated.
Ben's question about proposing, this is basically proposing a variation of choice. I think that Brett went over and slide about solar for all, about the cap, after this question was asked. So Jen, if that question wasn't answered, just wanted to make sure that that's accurate and what would happen.
Well, again, yeah, so we're wondering, like from your stakeholder perspective in this, in this meeting, does it make sense, first of all, for us to have two programs, one that's a market rate program and another one that's solar for all? Or, and plus I think we need to consider that solar for all is somewhat limited, right? It's only going to go on for the next 4 years or so. And then it's going to get capped out, and that's all that we'll be able to do then. So I want to at least have some kind of a path to address that, or a strategy. But also, what are the thoughts in the room about that? Does it make sense to do that? That's something that could cause concern.
Do we want people to go off mute if they have feedback?
That's fine. Yeah.
Jen, if you want to go off mute, might be better just coming.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Jen Krieger. I use she, her pronouns. I guess I was trying to make sure I was understanding the proposal correctly, that essentially you're proposing another tier of green choice. Like basically the option would be all the renewable energy options above and beyond Austin Energy standard generation mix are now going to cost a premium for non-cap customers, but those non-cap customers would get to decide how much of a premium they want to pay for and what would be the benefit of higher levels of premium. So just starting there for market rate customers, is that accurate of what you're proposing in a nutshell?
Well, I don't think we're really proposing anything yet,
Okay.
but that is an idea, right?
Okay.
That's one approach. And yes, I think that's an approach that we're considering.
Okay.
We really want to see if there's any other creative ideas to consider as well.
Yeah, well then I guess my next comment based on that was that what first came to mind was California's community choice aggregation model. For those that don't know, California doesn't have the same electricity market structure as we do. So they don't have full retail electric choice the way we do in the not restructured parts of the state here. But they do have kind of a medium ground option for local governments that essentially pass policy that says we want to be able to buy our electricity supply on behalf of our residents and businesses in our jurisdiction. And typically those local governments will do that so that they can meet their renewable energy or climate goals faster than the state of California as a whole is. So typically they're designing different rates that community choice aggregation customers can choose from. So they've got some base rate that is some higher level of renewable energy content than what customers could get by staying with the de facto investor-owned utility, and then there's usually some level of premium kind of green up options for at a higher rate, a higher cents per kilowatt hour. They can choose a higher renewable energy content. In some cases, they can choose a more local renewable energy content. And so it sounded like that was maybe something you're toying with, which I think could be kind of interesting as a hybrid retail choice model here. But also I wouldn't want to lose the ability for lower income customers to participate. So having some cap option, I think, is super important. And then two, I also would love to see Austin Energy supporting neighborhood scale choices. Like, I think it was Jorge's comment that like maybe some customers would want to pay more for increased reliability, supporting solar and storage together. Like, could Austin Energy offer something that would put batteries at a neighborhood scale so that if there were some threshold where enough customers in a neighborhood opted into this higher rate, they could get a higher chance of staying powered during grid outages because their circuit is tied to a backed up battery, coupled with solar. So I think there's lots of ideas to play with if you're looking at kind of giving customers the ability to choose their own rate, essentially.
Yeah, thank you, and I like that comparison, and I think it does make sense, and our customers, as they don't have retail choice, the more options that we can give them, the better. You know, it's we're not going to sacrifice our ability to be the sole provider of energy to our customers, but we do want them to have a feeling of satisfaction and the ability to make choices within what we can offer. So yeah, I think it's very similar to that program. Any other questions or ideas? Don't feel like you have to throw something in the chat, but feel welcome to, or like I said, if you have a particular idea for the program or for a survey question, you can email it to us at solar@austinenergy.com.
We do have a residential solar standard offer stakeholder meeting on August 13th. One invite has already gone out for that. Not receive it, email us. That email address, solarstandardoffer@austinenergy.com. Be added to the invite list. Another invite reminder will be sent.
Anyone?
Yes. Oh, yeah, just for what Sam said, we have a residential solar standard offer meeting coming up. It's number 4, and that's on October 13th from 1 to 2. So these 2 programs could potentially be interactive, especially if we decide that the best way to use any premiums from this program would be to subsidize in some way, shape, or form the standard offer program, which then would feed the portfolio of this program and hopefully have good synergy.
Davis hand raised.
Hey, yeah, I had a couple thoughts about questions for the survey. I guess first of all, on the kind of willingness to pay, I would just encourage giving a very wide range so that you really get the full spectrum of what people are willing to pay. And then I was just kind of also thinking about the duration of, the commitment. And I don't know if there's already something that y'all are thinking about, but that might be worth surveying if it is going to be the kind of program that you're locked into it for a certain amount of time. Obviously, if it's just that you can opt out at any time, then that's pretty easy for customers, but it might be worth asking if folks are willing to make a commitment for, some number of years similar to the existing program.
Yeah, I would say we offer that through Green Choice. And that's basically for commercial customers. And that commitment is, part of what they need to meet their requirements for LEED and green building. But noted, and I see some value to having residential customers that are committed as well. And so maybe there's some kind of cost break there if they're willing to commit for 5 years or whatever it is.
Yeah, it seems like it would be valuable to Austin Energy to have certainty in terms of subscribers, although I don't anticipate there's probably going to be a lack of subscribers. Thanks.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess the other thing was, there was discussion about, kind of load matching, solar paired with batteries. I don't know if you're intending to ask a question about that, but you could ask another, I think, cost, willingness to pay question on, if it was paired with batteries, to enable the transition away from fossil fuels. I think people need to understand that it's not necessarily a battery at their home. So like, what is the value of that? It'd be interesting to know if folks would be willing to pay more for that product.
Agreed. All right, y'all. Well, thank you for sticking in with us and getting all educated up on community solar. We'll have some more of these meetings as we move forward and work towards pinpointing a program and having that ready to go once we start getting some more portfolio in through the standard offer. Have a great day. Feel free to send questions to solar@austinenergy.com. We'll see you next time.